So it is Friday, March 18th. We're recording this from the Okemo Valley TV studio with State Representative Charlie Kimbell joining us from the State House in Montpelier before he heads home for the end of the week, wrapping up the week there in the committee room. And how is it going, Representative Kimbell?
Well, thank you, Patrick. Nice to see you again. It's going well. I'm glad to be done with the week. It's a long week here in Montpelier because this was the week immediately following crossover, which means that we had a lot of bills hit the floor. For instance, there was a 400-page bill that was a technical corrections bill. I think the presenter took about 7 minutes to describe it. And I'm not sure if anybody really read all of it. And it's prepared by our legislative counsel to go through parts of one particular part of statute and correct all of the misspellings, punctuation, all those type of stuff. So that's one of the things that happens every year, and we go through those things. So stuff like that, and we had a large bill that was coming through, another 200-page bill on education, and this is trying to figure out a better way for school districts to withdraw from a supervisory union. And so that there would be notification ahead of time as to what the implications are for that school district. So if you withdraw, you still have to have the services of a supervisory union. And a number of schools have withdrawn from a supervisory union without then lining up the services they needed to continue on, whether special education or financial aid or that type of thing. So those schools then found themselves scrambling to figure out, well, who am I going to join with to do that? So that was a 200-page bill and had some issues around that. But yeah, kind of complicated. Then we had on Tuesday night, the governor signed the bill, it's H717, that gave money or allocated money for a Ukrainian humanitarian aid effort. And that was, I think it was $644,826 to go to Save the Children to support the Ukrainian efforts there, the humanitarian efforts. That was a big deal. We had a lot of people speaking, and that's a lot of money. I mean, it's the state is rarely in the position of sending money to aid and humanitarian aids in foreign zones. So this is one very unique situation.
And was that because of the influx of ARPA funds?
No, these are general fund dollars. So that we can't use ARPA funds for it, but it was just really an outpouring of support from people all over the state and of the legislators themselves, and saying, we really need to do something to recognize the aggression that's being visited upon the people of Ukraine. And so the governor asked the legislature for the appropriation. The legislature agreed, and so that's where the money came from the general fund. Yeah. The group that was selected, Save the Children, I believe is part of the UN, has done some incredible work around the world. And so rather than give it to somebody for weapons or sending it direct to the Ukrainian government, is really to give it to this charity, and that helps Vermont stay clean on the Constitution, which prevents states from engaging in foreign diplomacy. That should be left to the national government. So this is really a gesture from the people of Vermont to help support the people in Ukraine.
And I know it's needed over there right now. Certainly
is. We had another couple of things coming through the legislature. One was H518 is bad title for us, municipal fuel switching. There are over 2,000 municipal buildings across the state, which is a surprisingly high number of buildings. And a lot of them have boilers that are about 40 years old or 50 years old, very inefficient. So this establishes a $48 million fund to help those municipalities switch over to a fuel-efficient heat source. And it could be advanced wood boilers, it could be heat pumps and that type of stuff. So it limits the spending, I think, to $200,000 per municipality, but that's really going to help them in terms of lowering their fuel expenses. It could be weatherization too. So a lot of those buildings, as we know, are poorly insulated. So that's going to help a lot, and that money starts to roll out, I think, in 2023, I believe. So that is a use of ARPA funds, $48 million, I believe. So that'll be a great project. I mean, look at the price of oil. I mean, right now, it's just amazing. I know my wife and I talked about the cost for us on a monthly basis. I think we just got a bill of $750. Like that hurts. That's a month, going up to over $4 a gallon. So that's kind of the impetus for this, is to make it so that these municipalities are saving money, but they're also moving to a more predictable cost with that wood heat or with that electric heat through a heat pump, and by insulating their buildings. So that's a big deal.
Definitely. So what else do we have going on this week in terms of what bills are you taking up in committee? I guess now you're looking at Senate bills. Is that correct?
Not yet. So the bill we've been trying to push through this workforce development bill. It's H703 is the number of it. And we just added a bunch of stuff this week. But originally it was about $100 million in spending. And we're taking some money out of that because it's better placed in other ways. Just for instance, $4 million is something that we're using for lab simulations for nursing students. And that's one of the big points of constraint, is there's not enough laboratory space for nurses to really get some experience. But that's being funded through the capital bill from monies that we are receiving directly from the federal government. So that helps reduce the spending in our bill. So these are very necessary. We're trying to create ways to get more nurses into the field. And so some of that is nursing educators and people that fill the role as nurse preceptors and train people on the floor, and also physicians assistants. So some of that is in there. We've got bills around career and technical education centers and looking at changing their governance and financing models. So this bill is now up to 64 pages. And today we added a piece that is to look at the salaries and benefits that we offer to our correctional facility officers. That they have a very hard job. I mean, some of them are working 16 hours a day, literally. And the burnout rate is really high. So trying to figure out how can we fairly compensate the folks that are in those positions. How does the compensation compare to what's being offered in other states? So we're looking at that. So that just got added today. We had another piece added yesterday. So now it's down to getting this bill out of our committee and then in through the appropriations process. So we've been working with them closely about, okay, is this, you say you want 125,000, can you deal with 100,000? You say you need 3 million, how about 1 million? So the money committees are working really hard right now to figure out how we can fund all this stuff. There's this perception that there's just an endless pit of money. I think we might have talked about that before, but there isn't. We've overcommitted the money that we have from ARPA. We've overcommitted the money we have from the general fund. And so now it's a matter of cutting back on all those things that people said, now we want this. So we had put in a request for $15 million. Not we, but there was a request from the Working Lands Enterprise Board. And this is a grant fund to stand up new farmers and people in a working lands. It could be forestry, it could be some kind of food processing. But that is now pared down to a $1 million request. So from 15 million down to 1. That's a big drop. And that's what is realistic given where we are. We hope there'll be some additional monies there, but that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with right now. It's really down to that kind of fighting in the trenches for every dollar.
Can I just ask you a piece of housekeeping here? In that you're now after crossover, and but I don't get how you're still working on a bill, a house that was written in your committee. It didn't make it out of your If you didn't make it out of the chamber, how is it? How are you still working on it? Is it not?
So here's the deal. So we pass it out of our committee, and then if there's any money or any appropriation tied to it or any fees, then it has to go to the money committee. The money committees have then another week to work on their bill before they have to pass it out and then goes to their body. So we passed it out of our committee last week, long week, and then the committee of jurisdiction was then looking at it this week. I'm sorry, the finance committee, the appropriations committee. So, but we knew that a lot of pieces weren't yet finished. So we're looking at doing an amendment to the bill that we already passed out of our committee. So it's going to be an amendment offered on the floor. So we can continue to work on this. Now we're done. We can't work on it anymore. So we have to vote it out, but that's why.
So even though it hasn't yet made it out of the House and crossover has already happened, it doesn't mean that it's dead. It's still.
That's right. If something hasn't been taken up at all or passed out of committee, we can't do anything on it.
I see.
But if it's passed out of our committee and hasn't passed through the House yet, then we can continue to try to offer amendments when it comes onto the floor. And that's what we're doing. And it makes it really odd for next week when the bill that we present, because we have to report it on the floor, and then there's an amendment from the Ways and Means Committee, there's an amendment from the Appropriations Committee, and then we have almost a strike-all amendment that we're offering in conjunction with the Appropriations Committee. So it's really confusing at this point, but we were asked by other committees to continue to work on this in this week. And I think we've presented to the Appropriations Committee at least 3 times, which is highly unusual. You only usually present just once. But because there's so much swirling around, we needed to spend a lot of time on it.
Mm-hmm. And for a visual, for our folks at home watching, I'm looking over your right shoulder there at your bulletin board. And I know on the left side, if I remember correctly, are all bills that you are taking up or that have been proposed, and then on the right are bills that you're actually working on. Is that correct?
Yeah. The thin column are the bills that we've passed out of committee.
I see.
And the thick column, and I'm looking over my shoulder, so it's on my right on my screen, but it may be on your left from what you can see, right?
Yeah, it's on the left-hand side of the screen, but yeah.
Okay. Those are all the bills that have been referred to our committee, which we haven't passed out. Some of them we may have taken up, but we haven't passed out. And what's not really clear is that some of those bills are very similar to ones that we have already passed out of the committee. So yeah, so of the 1,000 bills that get introduced in a 2-year time period, probably for the entire legislature, about 200 of them make it through. Yeah. So it's an incredible volume of bills that come in, but we're in the short strokes now. We're looking forward to what we're going to get from the Senate. We have a little bit of a preview. So they have a huge economic development and housing bill that's going to come our way, and we only look at one of those pieces, and it'll be a lot of work to figure out what the Senate is asking us to do, and they're going to have a lot of work when they look at what we're asking them to do. So yeah, it gets really.
How are you feeling about this session in general? Do you feel like there's a good sense of progress is being made, and are you feeling generally good about where you're at this part of the session?
Yeah, I think we're in a really good position. I mean, our workforce development bill is really pretty sharp now, so I'm very thankful for that. I think overall in the House, we've had some major pieces of legislation passed through. And I mean, remember, we did 2 constitutional amendments this session so far, and that's highly unusual. And there have been votes to override the governor on some things such as the voting age in the city of Brattleboro. So yeah, there's been a lot of stuff that has come through, a lot of things that will help Vermonters in their daily lives. So I feel pretty good about it. Yesterday we had a bill through the legislature that was the sealing of criminal records. And this is, if somebody's been convicted of a crime and they've either gone through their sentence or repaid and any kind of penalties, they're due. There's an opportunity for them to get back into the workforce and back into society. If their records are open and searchable, chances of them getting a job and having a normal life after that are very small. So we had this thing called expungement of records. And expungement would just completely take them off the books. Sealing records is different. That means that it can still be viewed by court officers, but it's not viewable to the public. So it's good for law enforcement. Sealing is a little bit better than expungement if you're worried about making sure that the person that someone isn't committing if somebody reoffends, that you can look to see what they've done in the past. But it's not used against them when they're going for employment or for an apartment or for whatever. So that's a bill that passed yesterday. That's actually a workforce development bill, if you want to look at it that way, and kind of restorative justice and social justice that way. So those are some of the things that they don't get the headlines necessarily, but they're important bills that we pass out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I might as well wind this down and let you get on the road here, so you can enjoy the close to 60 degrees here. It's probably cooling off a little bit now, but you might be able to enjoy a windows down kind of ride home tonight. So,
well, I hope so.
First of the
I got to
season.
tell you about the diner tour. So last Saturday I ended up going across the river to Lou's Diner in Hanover. Now,
Okay.
Lou's is a classic diner. Yeah.
Yeah. On that side of the river, I don't know. I didn't know if we wanted to, promote anything over on the other side of the river. But since we're on the topic, I think Four Aces is pretty good too, and that's so close. I mean, it's right on the border, so it's practically Vermont.
Four Aces and Cheryl's. Have you ever been to Cheryl's Diner?
I've done a lot of driving by, but if I'm gonna go to a diner and I'm over there, it's usually Four Aces. But it's
Cheryl's is definitely worth checking out because their portions are huge and their prices are small. So it's good hot food and they're really great, like that. And then went back to the Wayside Diner. I go there every week, at least once. And at the Wayside, they bring around hot donut holes that they've just taken out of the oven.
Oh yeah.
And while you're sitting there, like, you want a donut hole? It's like, of course I do. Yeah, they are awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you must be working it off. I don't know. You're, you still able to fit in the exercise? You still?
A little bit. Yeah.
Good.
Got to do that.
Yeah.
Little stationary bike, little hiking, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
There you go. Representative Kimbell, thank you once again for giving us sort of a synopsis on a week in the legislature. We've been enjoying this, and hopefully our viewers have too, and they've been learning a little something as we go along.
All right. Thank you much. Great to spend time with you again.